start sharing whenever. Oh, Raven, you are right. We do have another SpaceX launch. Of course, we'd book ourselves.
Am I good?
Yep.
Okay, sorry. Yeah. I'm conflicting with the SpaceX launch. Oh, I better hurry up and through this. Well, greetings everyone. Orson John here. I am one of the judges for the Mars competition. I am Ya'ate. I am Navajo. I originally hail from the New Mexico side of the Navajo Reservation, Four Corners, New Mexico, and currently reside at NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center in Greenbelt, Maryland. So you think Washington, D.C., I reside at I am based out of one of the NASA centers located around Washington, D.C. in the Greenbelt suburb. I work as a reliability and risk analysis engineer at NASA Goddard. So I work primarily within safety and mission assurance and primarily work in that area of focus and support various flight missions. And so today I'm just going to give you some tips simply about project management. Obviously, we can't, there's so much to say about it. I'm going to try to give you an opportunity, just give you a, 30,000 foot level, so to speak, high level bullet points, just to give you an introductory tools and tips to help you succeed for First Nations launch. And so I just want to say thank you for taking the time to join us. And on top of that, thank you for the time to rewatch this for those that are going to join it at the recording. So um, I do want to share and preface that the material here, I do want to credit Dr. Juan Ramon. He was the former engineering director here at NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center. And I do believe that he did teach on project management for a number of years. And so the first project management workshop that we held for FNL, Dr. Juan Ramon was the one that kind of initiated the material. And so I do want to give credit. And, some of the tools that are here, I do implement on my day to day, not just here with work, but also with life. And so I'm excited to just share and showcase some of the tools and tips for us today. I do want to also state that I probably will repeat several things just simply because they drive the conversation, but also to emphasize the importance of it, right? So as a judge, just want to let you know, I won't tell you exactly what I'm looking for, but if you pay attention, you'll see the driving points here. And so I do want to share with you that some things will be repetitive. That's only to drive the point. That's only to drive the importance of it to help you succeed. I do want to let you know that here at NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center, we do work in teams. We do work on projects. We do work on complex things. We do work on, you know, really complex technical things. We always work in a team dynamic. It's never just one person. And so we know that these teams strive to accomplish a goal. We are interdependent and we complement one another with a variety of different skill sets that folks bring to the table. We know that with the projects that are complex, we know that they can be time defined, meaning that we have an allocated mission timeline in which we got to design, build, and launch within a certain period of time, but also for that mission to last, right? We are cost control, meaning that we are fixed to budgets because, funding does kind of rule some things, as you are aware with First Nations launch. And oftentimes we're limited in scope, meaning that we have a specific objective that we need to accomplish. And so, simply put, projects have to be planned, projects must be organized, and projects must be implemented, not only just implemented, but they must be controlled. They must be controlled. And so, in a sense, projects need to be managed, right? Because projects have a start and end and they produce something. And so project management is really that art that kind of glues everything together. As a science, it's really the art of leadership, right? It's incorporating that tangible product to be produced because you're under all the different constraints. And so you as team leaders, right? You as team members, you as working on this for the very first time, you must work together to demonstrate that vision, that motivation, and that coordination to help people to help each other achieve an objective. And so for you all, right, for all of us, right, our objective is to win First Nations launch, right? That should be your number one objective is I am going to be the number one team, I'm going to win First Nations launch. That should be the objective, right? And so the team lead and team members, the team lead, right, really should implement the tools and the resources as you delegate, as team members receive that delegation, you receive some of the tools that project management offers, right? And so as a team lead, you need to define that vision and that motivation and that coordination across what you're planning to do, whether you are in Gateway, whether you are in Moon, or whether you are in the Mars challenges. These tools will help you to succeed. And so your number one objective should be, I am going to win First Nations launch. And then everything will cascade and follow. Because at NASA, that's what we do, right? We all have a start date of when we're going to implement projects. And so when we look at the entire life of a project, they're broken up into different phases. They're broken up into, really for today's sake, alphabetical phases, because each phase is fundamental in the life cycle of a project. So if you think about the life cycle of it, each life cycle has a specific phase that you go through, A, B, C, D, and so forth. And so it's no different. It's no different of First Nations launch. If you were to put that life cycle on an x-axis, on a timeline from left to right or from right to left, traditionally, I think from left to right. You think about phase A in the beginning to phase F or phase E at the end, right? And so for First Nations launch, this is how you're going to envision, and this is how you're going to think. You're going to populate the beginning of First Nations launch from the time you've got to submit your intent, right? Your letter of intent, to the time you've submitted your proposals, and you kind of look and outline and put it into a timeline to help you visualize it, right? To help you visualize so that it could enable you to start thinking about how to execute various elements of First Nations launch, how to organize it, right? How to organize it in such a way that it could be tracked, and how can it be organized in such a way that it could be managed, right? Because we want you to succeed. We want you to be sure that you come to First Nations launch ready, right? Not scrambling to get everything done, but you come to First Nations launch ready, and you're going to be the first one on the launch pad ready to launch, right? And so if you think about my number one tool today is just to drive home the emphasis of defining the life cycle. Develop and visualize First Nations launch. Put it on a timeline. It helps you to understand what is needed. It helps you to put together what is needed. And so for First Nations launch, hey, the team has already done it. Rob and company, right? Frank and Mark and company, right? Like all of them, right? They can't leave Connie out there too. All of them have put it together, right? All of them have put it together for you. And so you know, they've already created this for you. And so now it's just an opportunity to take ownership of it, right? Now is an opportunity to start looking into the student handbook and start, you know, getting into the nitty gritty to actually put it on a timeline. And so some key elements I want to keep you just aware of, right? Some key terminologies. I may use the word task. Task is just a high level of what needs to be done. And then an activity is just all the individual elements that need to complete that task, right? So if you're, you know, assembling your nose cone and you're fabricating your nose cone, for example, what all the little activities need to happen in order for the nose cone to be completed. I'm going to develop a nose cone, or I'm going to fabricate a nose cone. That's the task. What are all the individual element activities that need to be done in order for that nose cone to be fabricated? The sequencing is all those activities that need to fall in line or in order to achieve that task, to meet a specific objective. Because remember, for your proposals, you're doing all of this research. Now for preliminary design, that's what it is. You're going into your preliminary results. I've done my research. This is what my preliminary plan is. For critical design, I solidified my design. I'm ready and I'm going to proceed with it, right? The duration, how long is each activity? How long is each task going to take, right? Because if you think about maybe you need to factor in painting aesthetically your rocket kit, right? You're not waiting until the last minute, the night before you get on a flight, right? You want to take into time the consideration of your adhesives and the curing process or the manufacturing process if you're fabricating your entire kit, right? And the critical path, the longest sequence of events, right? Because in your reports, it also talks about challenges and barriers. And so hint, right? Your critical path is important. What is the longest sequence of activities in the schedule that need to be done, right? Many times, maybe procurement could be one that could be something that is a critical path. One component, because of the long lead time, you need to get it in. You need to be aware of such items. And so what we need to do for you all, or what you need to do and receive from here today, is just schedule that purpose, right? Schedule purpose and functions. Your schedule is going to help you because it identifies who's going to do it and how they intend to do it, or when they intend to do it. What needs to be done, who's going to do that thing, and when it needs to be done. And so the schedule has all these intricate functions, right? It incorporates all the individual tasks. It incorporates all the individual activities that all flow in a logical flow, and establishes what needs to be done for the set duration. But it also helps you identify priorities. It helps you identify what needs to be done at all times. And it helps you identify problems early because it's starting to make you think now. Because remember, as a team leader, as a project manager, as a team member, you're supporting your team leader by thinking vision, right? You're thinking long term. I'm going to succeed for First Nations launch. And so backtrack that out. Now, what needs to be done in order for that to be successful? So you're going to start thinking about that, right? When you submit your reports because Rob is asking you to submit them, don't wait until the deadline to try to do edits. No, you got to factor in your edit time, right? It's helping you identify problems early, because developing a credible schedule is critical. Developing a credible schedule, a realistic schedule, right? And so it's going to drive your purpose and your functions, right? For FNL, you're going to be divided into your whatever team you're going to strive for, Moon, Mars, Gateway. Those are going to be the ones that are going to drive your schedule. It's going to help you identify requirements. What is due and when is it due? It's going to help you identify all the activities that are needed, right? For you, since I'm familiar with the Mars challenge, right? It's all the little sensors that you are all going to need in order to accomplish, to meet the objectives of the Mars challenge. But it's also an opportunity for you to measure work accomplishments, because remember, when it comes time to write your reports, right, you're going to highlight and summarize all the activities and all the tasks and the critical path and the duration. You're going to have to summarize all of that, and you're going to have to showcase those accomplishments, and you're going to effectively translate all that technical jargon so that somebody like me can read it and understand, like, oh, wow, these students have really put in the work. Why? Because they started to see things long term. And so as a project manager, you're going to be running off a schedule. You're going to be running off of this. You're going to be running off a schedule. So you must define early the challenges. You must define early what the objectives are. And so your schedule will incorporate, you're going to see, okay, then the next milestone is my preliminary design review. What are all the activities? What are the tasks? What is everything that needs to be done for that to be accomplished? And so for FNL, you're going to look at your handbook. You're going to keep in contact with your TRA mentors and your faculty guidance, right? Your faculty mentor. You're going to incorporate and you're going to identify the criteria, but the expectations, right? You're going to define the expectations. And the wonderful thing is, First Nations launch administration crew, they do phenomenal job to get everything in your hands so that you could follow it, right? So project management, just define your schedule, define the challenge, and define the criteria and the expectations that are needed to meet those specific milestones. Know when your deadlines are due, right? Put some slack in it, right? If it's due on December 3rd, for example, I'm not going to wait until December 3rd to incorporate I'm going to give myself some slack. Maybe a week before, I want to have everything done, or maybe 3 days before, I'm going to have everything done so that I can marinate on it and reread everything and make sure that everything makes sense, or I need to correct some things, right? Progress. It's there to help you with your progress. Not only does a schedule schedule drive in defining what needs to be done, but it's part of the planning process. It's really the essentials of planning the process, because now you set goals and objectives, right? Because many of you are balancing 15, maybe 12, 16, 20 credits, or maybe some of you are part-time students, or maybe some of you are working full-time jobs, have a family and are working, right? And are going to school. And so you have to factor all of that in. What are my objectives? If I have clear objectives, if I have clear goals, if I write them down and I put them, I'm more likely to follow them and keep on track, right? Remind you, just a plug, go back to your New Year's resolutions. Kidding y'all, you all can smile. List the task, estimate the duration, determine the sequence, and assign resources. And how that's going to look for First Nations launch is your competition requirements, your deliverables. Like I said, it's going to be repetitive because this reaches different grounds, right? It's be repetitive in that sense that this is important. Set up your calendars. Know when your meetings are going to happen. Know each other's schedules as students. You have all of these midterms and finals. That's what it is. I'm looking for that word. Finals. You have all these lab works. You got your job. You got your family. You got to know when your calendar is set up. This will help you define how often you should meet, when you should meet, right? You're going to list what's important, right? And this is where, as a project manager, you're going to have to delegate. As a team leader, you'll delegate what are the strong suits, right? What are the things that are important? I know reports are important, so I know technical writing is essential. I know verbal communication and oral presentations are important, so I must factor that in. Who can help, right? Vehicle requirements, payload requirements. I know from your report, from your proposals, I know you're already thinking about these things, and so I'm kind of just repeating some things that you already know, but I just want to emphasize the importance of it. And assigning resources. Know when and where to assign resources. Proposals incorporate your labs, right? Do you have the space to do things? Those are important. Those are things that should not be overlooked. And so when you define FNL's project and challenges, break up those tasks, right? There's nothing complicated right about it. I put the little post-it board down there. I can tell you this, that truly, even on my day-to-day job, I still use post-it notes on a whiteboard. I'm not really there digitally yet as an individual because I like to see things. I like to move things around. And so for me, I still use what I would consider the old-fashioned post-it notes and the color coding. I still drive and still define my objectives and my requirements for my projects to be sure that I follow what is needed to be done, follow what needs to be done. And so break down your project task, define your milestones, what are needed for those milestones. You're not just copying and pasting the student handbook into your report. Hint, hint. Scope the project first. Create those tasks and use what are experienced staff, right? Some of you are coming back as students who have participated in previous years. So as a team leader, leverage those experiences, right? For your task, right? Activities that need to be accomplished and achieved, right? Walk through them, put them on post-it boards, right? So I'm not just on my task, on my schedule, I'm not just saying PDR. But what are all the individual elements needed to have a successful PDR? What are all the elements to have a successful, to showcase a successful accomplishment, to say, I am ready to proceed to the next phase? Because preliminary design as a milestone is like a gate, right? You're presenting to the gatekeepers, right? You're presenting to Mark, you're presenting to Frank, you're presenting to Connie and Rob, and you're presenting to the judges. You're letting us know of all the accomplishments that you have done to walk through the next phase. And so as the gatekeepers, they're going to say, you're ready, right? So you must write those tasks. And as a project manager, you must be aware of those things. As a team leader, you're aware of those things. And if your team leader delegates to you as a team member, it is your responsibility to take ownership and say, okay, then I receive it. My team leader is a team leader, but I'm a mini team leader. I am a mini project manager. I'm going to manage my task well, right? Because these tasks, they have characteristics. They should be precise and detailed, right? So what are all the little things that need to be done to make this thing happen, right? You think about your avionics and you go down to the switches, right? Maybe you're learning from past experiences, but what are all the little things that need to be done to help you wire everything so that when you're coming on launch day, you're set, right? And so we do want to be sure that you visualize the activities and start discussing them with your team. Just because you're at proposal now does not mean that you need to just stop thinking about your future events. No, come together. Start writing them down, right? Start writing them down and start marking what all the individual activities need to be done to make that happen. Because right now, the proposal, right, for my Mars challengers, right, for example, you're going through all the sensors, right? You're doing all the sensor research. You're doing your trade studies, right? Well, that should be part of your schedule. Trade studies, right? Then how were you at in the schedule for that, right? And so you want to be sure that you capture those activities. And I know maybe it might be tedious. Just be thankful for your project managers because oftentimes they'll do things that are tedious. Estimating task. Know when things, right? Be realistic, right? Be realistic about how long this is going to take. Because remember, your students, maybe your athletes too, maybe you're on the, on the basketball team, for example, or cross country team, or maybe you have a family at home, or you have a job, right? You're trying to balance all of these, right? And then you must be realistic, right? We have a couple of holidays coming up. And so for me, I have to think about that as well, right? So you're going to have to think about your breaks. You have winter break coming about. When are your your teammates and when are your peers, when are they able to meet? You're going to have to factor in all of this. When are the labs going to be open? Apply realistic estimates. Estimate in hours. Assume normal working conditions, right? Because maybe you're not available from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. And those are hard deadlines that you cannot support FNL outside of those, within those hours. Be realistic with your project manager. As team leaders, be realistic of what availability your members have, right? Because you also need to factor in the complexity of things. Because remember, even for your Mars challengers, reading your barriers and your challenges, and you're already thinking about these things. So kudos to you. But remember, like when it comes time to start integrating stuff, that's where the problems can arise. So be sure to be realistic about such things. Sequencing, what things need to be done in order for them to be, in order for you to move on to the next step. Maybe you have a team delegated to just doing the rocket kit, and you have another team delegated to avionics. Well, how do those two relate? Do you need your avionics to fit into your kit, or vice versa? Do you need the sizing of the avionics sled to fit into the tube? And so maybe you need to figure out the dimensions. FNL has already done this for you. And so you balance those things. What tasks need to be finished before another starts? How are those tasks related? How are they related? And so remember these, remember the constraints. Identify these things early. Assigning resources. I think this one I probably could spend a lot of time on, right? Being a team leader, being a team member, assigning people, equipment, and funds. Who is going to be the lead point of contact? How do you want to be contacted? I saw the word Discord a lot in some of the reports, right? Is that how you're going to establish a method of communication where everybody does receive what is needed? Maybe something drastic maybe something comes up that prevents you from meeting at a certain time, right? You can't make a team meeting. How is everybody going to know that if you're not communicating, if there's not an established form of connection? And so as a team leader, as a project manager, you must be aware of these things. Are you held accountable to your academic advisor? Who is going to be in contact to your mentor, your TRA, or your rocket expert, right? Who's going to be the main point of contact, right? How often are you going to be sure to communicate? And maybe advisors, how often do you going to communicate to your team lead to see how progress is going, right? Who will do the task? This is where the delegation comes in. This is where you leverage experiences. Who's going to be involved, how much they're going to be involved, how they're going to be involved, right? Do you have a dedicated individual that's going to start writing the reports and be sure, and then you have an editor, right? Somebody that comes in at the last, right before you submit, right? That's going to come in and edit and make sure all the fonts are the same, make sure all the units are the same, make sure that all the requirements that are addressed in the handbook are captured. softball. And I'm throwing you so you can hit it out of the park. Resource requirements, consideration, right? Facilities and faculty, right? Facilities, what is needed? Do you need training before you go to start using these facilities? That's why proposals are there. It's letting us communicate that, hey, my team is ready because we have access to all of these things and we're going to get all the training that we need so that we can have access to these labs. And so therefore we feel confident that we can move forward in our preliminary design, right? So knowing your consideration and your requirements, what is needed, what skills are required, right? Is there anybody in the team that is certified in a method of, manufacturing, for example, right? Who knows how to do stuff that nature? Or if you don't know anybody that knows how to do, nobody on your team knows that, that is something that you need to be aware of now so that as you progress, you start to incorporate the resources that are needed to help you move on to the next objective. For example, soldering. Maybe not many team members are familiar with soldering. That is a big thing because your avionics are important, right? And so soldering may be something as a resource that maybe your skill set is not there yet. And so what must I do? Thinking ahead now, looking at the vision, what must I do to make sure that I have what I need when the time comes? You're thinking ahead, you're assigning people, you're assigning a resource to help you succeed, right? Do you need to bring in a mentor or run some things by Frank and Mark? I know they really love to help others, right? Right? They'll give you guidance and they'll give you information to help you. Team schedules, I touched on this one already. I don't think I want to touch on it again, but know when your schedules are, know when you can meet. Know when you can meet. Don't just randomly send a text message every week saying, let's meet here. And then, right, set something up. Set something up, right? Types of other resources, right? Are there something specific that you need? I talked about soldering. And then your budgets, right? Your funding, your sustainability. I know that's a fancy word that is being used in the reports now, right? Sustainability, right? Do you have team members that are committed to saying, I'm going to win First Nations launch and we're going to do this together? Or you know what, I probably have somebody for the beginning part of the semester, but I don't know how it's going to turn. You got to know these things as a team leader and as a project manager. And so reach out to folks, reach out to Mark, reach out to Frank, reach out to Rob, and make sure you get the guidance. Reach out to your advisors, right? And to help you guide you through the way. And all I'm saying today is balance it all. Find the balance. Plan it. It can be time consuming. The whole point of this presentation is to use a schedule. Let your schedule help you define what is needed when it is needed. And that's just simply manage your schedule. It's a critical component of planning your project. Know your target deadlines and work to develop a task. Work to develop a task schedule. Know in advance when is needed. Know in advance when what is needed. Have a complete overview of all tasks and activities. That's the beauty of having a schedule. That's the beauty of putting it on a timeline, putting all the post-its up because you help visualize what is needed. You help visualize the end product. That's why all instruction manuals have the completed project right on the front page of all those instruction manuals when you buy something, right? So you go, and then once you flip the page, it tells you all the equipment and it tells you a step-by-step process so that the end product will look like what is on the first page, right? What is on the cover page. So understand and start to research. There are resources that are available for you to start keeping an eye on. And maybe that will be your downtime for homework, right? Because maybe one day at First Nations Launch Weekend, one of your judges may ask you a basic rocketry question. Just warning you all. It's all fun and games, okay? Plan ahead and identify steps. I cannot emphasize this enough. Keep your schedule updated. It's fluid, right? It's a work in progress. Check in with team members, right? Check in with them, right? You're a team leader. Motivate them. Yeah, we're going to win First Nations launch, right? Right? And we get a high five from Mark. Check in with your faculty members, right? Include internal and external milestones. Maybe you're holding yourself to a due date. We're going to have our reports and our presentations a week before they are due, hypothetically. What must I do to make sure that we can accomplish that? Right? Ensure the objectives are accomplished within the project commitments. This is important. Follow the guidelines and the requirements, and utilize the tools that you are being taught in your studies. Maybe you're taking a writing course right now in your college education, in your college career. Utilize the tools. Maybe you're taking a technical writing course. Utilize the tools that you're learning to incorporate, right? Maybe you're, going through, whatever engineering classes. Maybe you're going through some introductory science classes. These are some things that you can incorporate into your studies, right? Your lab work, some of the safety is important, right? So one of the things I know about my own college experience was whenever you did lab work, right, they emphasized the necessity of safety. And so safety must be a component of First Nations launch, right? How you do things and how you go about building, right? You don't just breathe in fumes from solder flux, no, right? Have ventilated area, learn how to, so incorporating the safety measures that you are being taught into incorporate those skill sets into First Nations launch. An example of a schedule, right? I know I've already looked at some of your schedules. You think about your phase one, your proposal, right? Your proposal had task 1, 2, 3, and 4. You're doing all your trade studies. You're doing your trade studies for you're doing your trade studies for your sensors for the payload. You're doing your trade studies for your rocket body kit, right? To meet the objectives of First Nations launch. And then your activities are all the individual activities that to be done that need to be met in order for that task to be completed. Right? So I could easily see task 1, your rocket kit. Task 2, your avionics. Task 3 could be your payload. And individually below those tasks could be the number of different elements that are needed, your number of different activities that are needed to meet that task. So for your payload challenge, you could list all the sensors that are there and what activities need to be done in order for you to, so why did you select that one sensor, right? You've done all your research, you've done the analysis, you've done the work, and now I've selected this sensor. You have a story to tell, and your schedule can help you drive that. And so as a team leader, as a project manager, this is important. Why? Because it helps you identify things early. It helps you identify. It's an opportunity skill set that helps you identify risk, helps you identify issues. But it also highlights successes, because all of you are a success, right? And so when you compete at First Nations launch, that's a highlight for your school. And you can showcase the skill set that you have learned through the entire development of First Nations launch and apply that to highlight at school to be like, we've done this as a team. We put our school on the map and we won First Nations launch, right? Why? Because you set out with the goal and a clear objective that I am going to succeed and I am going to win First Nations launch. And I've listed out all my activities. I've listed out all the tasks that are needed. And I organize all those activities and tasks by milestone, by phases. And in the middle of all of that, I was able to manage even the bad things that occurred, because bad things do happen, right? I know for Navajo, there's a saying during pinyon season, right? When all the pinyons have fallen, I'm sure my fellow Dene can attribute to this. That's just telling us that maybe it's going to be a tough winter ahead, right? There's going to be a lot of snow. Just imagine, right? Some of you are coming from schools where snow can be a challenge. So schools can be closed for a period of time, right? Things do happen, right? You're maybe not able to meet because of the complexities of your credits and your job and your family, right? All of those. So being a project manager, putting things down and listing the objectives and saying that, well, my team member wasn't able to complete this, but I'm not worried because I have another team member that is able to fill that gap, because you're working together as a team. You're planning ahead and thinking ahead. Right? Issue management, addressing the events that have occurred during the project's life cycle, right? These things that you're managing and you're overcoming. I think about the Hawaii team. right? Just because they're on an island off the continental United States, right? They always have the procurement, right? Procurement. And so, um, they factor that into managing, right? They want to, they're aware of that thing. And so some of the other schools that are in remote or rural communities, right? Procuring things might be a challenge, right? You just can't do Amazon like in maybe in an urban community and they just knock on the door and drop your item off, right? But also opportunity. I love this one because I always heard this that celebrating wins fosters a successful culture in a sense, right? Like you want to highlight the wins, like, hey, as a team member, right, we've accomplished these things. We're going to go outreach and we're going to showcase to our community that this is what we're doing and we're going to get people involved. Why? It helps build sustainability. It helps foster that culture of sustainability so that when you graduate, you'll leave something behind where maybe the other individuals can step in because it's an opportunity management. You're seeking good things that may benefit the project. And come on, you're launching rockets. I mean, like I can tell you this, I didn't do this in school. Identify, analyze, plan, and implement. Project management. And so this is a little different than previous years. And so just remember, I mentioned the value of communication tools. Google, it's perfect suite, right? It's a perfect just resources and tools. And then if your school has Office 365, right? You have OneNote, right? Opportunity to track meeting notes, right? You have email, you have Excel spreadsheets, Word documents, right? PowerPoints, presentations. And so learn these things, right? I know maybe your schools have, courses on just PowerPoint and Excel. We use those platforms every single day, right? Every single day. And so I just want to just give you an opportunity to highlight helpful collaboration tools, right? And so I do, before I end, right? I just want to remind you, I just want to remind you, I just want to remind you, a good project manager, a team leader, and a team member demonstrates vision, motivates, and coordinates people to achieve an objective, right? So as a project manager, all the individual elements to make that happen is what you are going to be doing. And so don't shy away with what First Nations Launch has to offer because it offers that skill set even beyond First Nations Launch. Just because you're writing all these reports and giving your presentations, that's a skill set that you are learning that can be applied for future endeavors, whether or not you choose a career in rocketry or whether or not you choose a career in STEM, science, technology, engineering, mathematics. These are skill sets that you can start to learn to apply to your everyday life and to your career moving forward. And so with that, I'll turn it back over to Rob. But if you have questions, I'm happy to answer them and attempt to answer them, or maybe I'll just refer to Rob and say, Rob, go ahead and take it away. So thank you all for entertaining me and for allowing me the time to speak to you today.
Thank you, Orson. And I just would like to reiterate with something you said at the end with the software. A lot of schools will provide either like a Google account or a Microsoft account. At times, your schools may provide additional software that are outside of just those suites. So it might be a good idea to just poke around, like check with your IT department at the school, see what resources are available, what software is out there. Some schools, they will at times have CAD programs available for you. I know that's, a little bit bigger than what we have, you may need for here since we have RockSim, but it is great software. And then, being a student, a lot of times you'll get it discounted, if not free through the school. So just take a look and find what resources are available. But it's a great opportunity. You guys have one of the judges here, so perfect time to ask questions.
I have a question. Did SpaceX launch?
It launched, I don't think it landed, where they tried it, they were going to do another landing attempt, but it looked like they decided to use the Gulf of Mexico to catch it. Yeah, it looked like it was launched right at 4, like on the dot. So they were using that window.
So I wonder if they too have to worry about avionics in the water.
Yeah, wet rockets are not always a good thing. No questions at all. Orson, you've gotten really good with the presentation then.
Oh,
All right. Well, if there are no questions, if you guys think of them later, feel free, email them in. We can pass them along to Orson. But if not, thank you guys.
thanks, Orson. You did a fine job. Excellent.
Thanks, Orson.
Thank you.
Have a good night, everyone.